Ever get that feeling like you're just kind of going through the motions? Accepting what you're told without really thinking it through.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Well,
Go
today,
on autopilot.
exactly, we're diving deep into a concept that challenges us to break free from that autopilot. It's called intellectual independence.
It's a powerful idea.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be exploring the work of Ayn Rand.
A philosopher who really championed this idea of thinking for yourself.
Now, I gotta be honest, I've heard of Ayn Rand, but her philosophy always seemed,
A little intimidating.
yeah, a bit intimidating. What's the core idea she's getting at with this intellectual independence thing?
Okay, so imagine you're building a house,
Yeah.
right? Would you rather build it on solid bedrock or on, like, shifting sand?
Bedrock for sure.
Okay, that's the essence of what Rand is saying. Intellectual independence means building your beliefs on that foundation,
Yeah.
on reason and evidence,
Right.
and your own carefully considered conclusions.
So it's not about being a rebel just for the sake of it.
No, not at all. It's about taking responsibility for your own thinking.
I like that.
Rand called her philosophy objectivism,
Okay.
and it emphasizes this idea of looking at reality as it is, not through the lens of wishful thinking or blind faith.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does that actually work in practice? Does it mean I have to reject everything I've ever been taught?
Not necessarily. It's more about applying a critical lens to all the information that you encounter.
Okay.
So think of it like being a detective,
Oh, okay.
always looking for clues,
Yeah.
evaluating the evidence,
Gotcha.
and then forming your conclusion.
So instead of just accepting what I read on social media or hear on the news, I should be asking myself, like, what are the underlying assumptions here? Is there evidence to actually support this? Are there other perspectives that I should consider?
Yes, that's the spirit.
All right.
Now, this doesn't mean you need to become a cynic and distrust everything, right?
Right.
It's about finding that balance
Right.
between being open to new information and being critical enough to avoid being misled.
I'm starting to see how this could be really empowering. But Rand takes this idea even further, right? She connects intellectual independence to morality. And I have to admit, that part always seemed a bit extreme to me.
Yeah, it might sound radical at first, but her point is that reason is our primary tool for survival.
Okay,
We need to think for ourselves,
makes sense.
to navigate the complexities of life and make choices that lead to our well-being.
So she's not saying that, like, being intellectually lazy is evil
No, not evil,
or anything like that.
but more that it's a form of self-sabotage. When you hand over your thinking to someone else, you're essentially giving away your power to shape your own life. You become dependent on others to tell you what to think,
Wow.
what to believe.
It's like you're outsourcing your brain.
Exactly. And even what to feel.
Wow. When you put it that way, it makes you realize how important it is to actually develop that ability to think for yourself. But it also sounds pretty daunting. Where do you even start?
Well, for Rand, the starting point is embracing rationality.
Okay.
It's about understanding reality as it is,
Mhm.
not how we might wish it to be,
Right.
and using logic and evidence as your guides.
So it's about building that house on solid ground.
Yes.
Exactly
Yes.
we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But what about all those emotional and social pressures that can kind of like influence our thinking?
Oh, that's where things get really interesting. Rand saw conformity as a major obstacle to intellectual independence. She argued that blindly following the crowd often leads us to sacrifice our own judgment
Hmm.
and betray our own values.
So it's not just about like being smart.
No.
It's about having the courage to actually stand apart from the crowd when your reasoning tells you something different.
Precisely.
Okay.
Think of an artist who creates work just to please critics or to kind of fit in with the current trends.
Right.
You know, they might achieve some level of success, but they're ultimately compromising their integrity and stifling their unique creative vision.
That makes sense. So integrity is another key piece of this puzzle. How does Rand define that?
For her, integrity is all about staying true to your own rational convictions. Even when it's difficult or unpopular,
Mm-hmm.
it's about refusing to compromise your values just because it's easier or more convenient.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces kind of fit together. So rationality provides the foundation.
Yeah.
Independence gives you that freedom to think for yourself.
Right.
And integrity gives you the courage to act on those thoughts, even when it's hard.
That's a great summary.
Thanks.
It's like a three-legged stool.
Oh, okay.
Take away one leg and the whole thing collapses.
This is all fascinating stuff, but I have to admit, I'm still wondering how all of this high-minded philosophy actually translates into everyday life. Does being intellectually independent actually make a tangible difference in how we live?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The benefits are both personal and societal.
Okay.
On a personal level, intellectual independence can lead to greater self-esteem,
Well, that's good.
more resilience,
Hmm.
and the ability to navigate challenges more effectively.
So it's not just about like feeling good about yourself. It's about actually being more capable of handling whatever life throws at you.
Exactly. And on a societal level, Rand believed that intellectual independence was the engine of progress and innovation.
Okay.
Think about it. Most major breakthroughs, whether in science, art, or technology, have come from individuals who dared to think differently and challenge the status quo.
Like Galileo, who risked everything to champion the idea that the Earth revolves around the sun, even though it went against like all the prevailing beliefs of his time.
Exactly. Or consider someone like Steve Jobs,
Right.
whose unwavering belief in his own vision revolutionized entire industries
Wow.
and brought us technologies that we now just completely take for granted.
It's amazing.
Yeah, their intellectual independence not only benefited them personally, but it also had this profound impact on the world.
So she's saying that a society full of independent thinkers is more likely to thrive and evolve. That's a pretty compelling argument.
It is, and it connects directly to Rand's view on freedom.
What?
She saw intellectual independence as the foundation of both personal and political freedom.
Huh.
You can't have a truly free society
Right.
if people are afraid to think for themselves.
So if we want to live in a free and innovative society, we need to start by cultivating our own ability to think critically and independently. That's a pretty powerful message. But it also raises a big question for me. If this intellectual independence is so important, how do we actually develop it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but my brain is already buzzing after that first segment.
Oh, yeah?
We've laid out the why of intellectual independence,
Right.
but now I'm itching to know the how. How do we actually put this into practice? It feels a bit like being told to climb a mountain without a map or any gear.
I get that feeling. It can seem daunting.
Yeah.
But the good news is developing intellectual independence is more like building strength through exercise than it is scaling Mount Everest in one go.
Okay.
It's about training your mind.
Yeah.
And just like with physical fitness, right, you can start small and build from there.
Okay, so give us that workout plan. Where do we start flexing those mental muscles?
All right, let's start with an everyday scenario.
Okay.
Okay. Imagine you're scrolling through social media
Mm-hmm.
and you come across a post that makes you angry
Oh,
or
yeah.
triggers a strong reaction. What's your usual response?
To be honest, probably knee-jerk outrage, firing off a comment or sharing it with like-minded friends to vent.
That's a natural human reaction,
Yeah.
but it's also a perfect opportunity to practice intellectual independence.
Okay.
So next time that happens, try hitting the pause button in your mind before you react.
Literally close the app for a few minutes.
That works. But I mean, a mental pause too.
Right.
Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What assumptions am I making about this post, about the person who posted it? What information am I missing? What are other possible perspectives?
So before I get fired up, I need to cool down and analyze the situation.
Yeah,
It sounds like I need to become my own fact checker.
exactly. And that fact-checking extends beyond social media.
Okay.
It applies to news articles, conversations with friends, even things you've always believed to be true.
Wow.
Don't just take things at face value. Dig a little deeper, do some research, consider different sources, and see if your initial conclusions hold up under scrutiny.
I'm starting to see how this pause button could be a really valuable tool. It's like taking that extra moment to choose the stairs instead of the escalator. A small effort with big potential payoffs.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of small efforts,
Yeah.
another way to cultivate intellectual independence is to diversify your intellectual diet.
Okay.
We tend to gravitate towards information that confirms our existing beliefs,
Right.
creating these echo chambers. But to actually strengthen your critical thinking, you need to venture outside of your comfort zone.
So I should actively seek out viewpoints that challenge my own. That sounds a bit uncomfortable, to be honest.
It can be, but that discomfort is often a sign of growth.
Hmm.
Think about it like physical exercise.
Mm.
If you're not pushing yourself a little, you're not building muscle.
I see your point. But how do I know which challenging viewpoints are worth engaging with and which are just noise?
That's where your developing sense of critical thinking comes in.
Okay.
As you practice evaluating information, you'll get better at discerning reliable sources from those that are biased or misleading.
Okay.
Look for evidence-based arguments.
Hmm.
Consider the author's expertise,
Right.
and be wary of information that's designed to manipulate your emotions without presenting any real facts.
So it's about developing a taste for quality information, just
Yeah.
like you develop a taste for good food or music.
Exactly. And as you expand your intellectual palette,
Right.
you'll find that your own thinking becomes more nuanced and sophisticated.
Okay.
You'll start to see the world in shades of gray rather than black and white,
Yeah.
which is essential for navigating complex issues.
This all makes sense, but I'm wondering about the social aspect. Won't all this questioning and challenging make me, like, difficult to get along with? I don't want to become that person who's always picking fights at dinner parties.
That's a valid concern. The key is to approach these conversations with humility and respect. Intellectual independence is not about being a know-it-all or proving yourself right.
Right.
It's about being curious, open to learning from others, and engaging in thoughtful dialogue.
So it's not about winning the argument.
No,
It's about understanding the issue more deeply, even if that means changing your own mind.
exactly. And remember,
Yeah.
you don't have to engage in a debate every time someone expresses a different opinion.
Okay.
Sometimes it's enough to simply listen with an open mind and try to understand their perspective.
Okay, so I'm listening, I'm questioning, I'm diversifying my sources.
Hmm.
What else can I do to strengthen that intellectual independence muscle?
One thing that's often overlooked is the importance of self-reflection.
Oh, okay.
Take some time to regularly examine your own beliefs and values.
Yeah.
Ask yourself why you believe what you believe.
Right.
Are your beliefs based on reason and evidence, or are they simply things you've always been told?
It sounds like you're encouraging us to become our own therapists,
In a way, yeah.
digging deep into our subconscious motivations.
It's about becoming more aware of the forces that shape your thinking,
Right.
both internal and external.
This is all starting to feel very empowering.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, there are times when it's just easier to go with the flow,
Yeah.
to accept what everyone else seems to believe, you know?
Hmm.
It takes courage to stand apart from the crowd, and sometimes I just don't feel that brave.
You're not alone in feeling that way.
Okay.
It's natural to seek approval and to avoid conflict, right?
Right.
But Rand would argue that this discomfort is a sign of growth. It means you're breaking free from the shackles of conformity and stepping into your own intellectual power.
So how do we find that courage? Where does it come from?
It comes from understanding the value of intellectual independence, from recognizing that your ability to think for yourself is your most precious asset. It's about trusting your own judgment, even when it goes against the grain.
So it's about believing in yourself,
Yeah.
in your capacity to reason and to arrive at your own conclusions.
Exactly. And it's about finding your tribe,
Oh, okay.
surrounding yourself with people who value intellectual independence.
Right.
And who encourage you to think for yourself.
So it's not about becoming a lone wolf.
No.
It's about finding a pack that supports your journey of intellectual exploration.
I love that. And it's about celebrating the journey. Recognizing that intellectual independence is not a destination, but a lifelong process of learning and growth.
I'm starting to see the appeal. It's not about reaching some state of perfect knowledge,
No.
but about embracing that ongoing adventure of discovery.
That's the spirit. And remember, it's not just about intellectual growth.
Right.
It's about personal fulfillment.
Mm.
When you live a life guided by your own reason and values, you experience this sense of authenticity and purpose that's incredibly rewarding.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense, and I'm excited to put these ideas into practice. But before we move on, I want to touch on one more point that keeps popping up in my mind.
Yeah.
What about the role of emotions in all of this?
Oh, yeah.
Rand seems to emphasize rationality above all else.
Right.
But we're not robots.
Right.
We're emotional beings.
That's a great point, and it's one that often gets misunderstood.
Yeah.
Rand wasn't advocating for suppressing our emotions
Okay.
or pretending we don't have them.
Yeah.
She recognized that emotions are a vital part of the human experience.
So it's not about becoming some kind of emotionless Vulcan?
Not at all. Emotions can provide valuable insights
Okay.
and motivate us to act,
Mm-hmm.
but the key is to be aware of how they might be influencing our thinking
Right.
and to prevent them from clouding our judgment.
So it's like being aware of our own biases.
Exactly.
We all have them, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah,
And those biases can really distort our perception of reality.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like we need to be aware of our biases. We need to be mindful of how our emotions might be shaping our conclusions.
So how do we do that? How do we keep our emotions in check without denying their existence?
One helpful technique is to try to see things from multiple perspectives.
Okay.
If you're feeling strongly about an issue, Imagine how someone who holds the opposite view might see things.
Right.
This can help you identify your own blind spots and develop a more nuanced understanding of the issue.
So it's like playing devil's advocate with yourself,
Yeah,
challenging your own assumptions
right.
and emotional reactions.
Precisely. It can help you to detach from your emotions
Right.
and to approach the issue more objectively. Another helpful strategy is to simply give yourself some time and space before reacting.
Okay.
If you're feeling overwhelmed by emotions, step away from the situation for a while
Yeah.
and come back to it when you're feeling calmer and more collected.
It's like that old advice about never sending an angry email.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just need to sleep on it
Right.
and see if you still feel the same way in the morning.
That's a great example. It's about giving your rational mind a chance to catch up with your emotional response.
This is all starting to feel very practical and applicable to everyday life.
Good.
It's not just, some abstract philosophical concept, but a set of tools and strategies that we can use to navigate the complexities of the world.
That's exactly what I hope you're taking away from this deep dive.
Great.
Intellectual independence is not just a theoretical ideal.
Mm.
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of your own thinking,
Right.
your own values, and your own choices.
It's about being an active participant in your own life
Yes.
rather than a passive passenger.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that can lead to incredible personal growth, fulfillment, and even joy.
Wow, this has been such an enlightening conversation. We've explored so many practical strategies for cultivating intellectual independence, and I'm already feeling more confident in my ability to apply them in my own life. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on one final question. How does intellectual independence impact our relationships with others?
That's a fantastic question, and one that we'll delve into in the final part of our exploration.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into intellectual independence. And, we've covered so much ground already, from embracing rationality to diversifying those intellectual diets, even grappling with the role of emotions. But I'm really curious to explore the impact of intellectual independence on our relationships with others. It seems like it could be kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, for sure.
More authenticity, but maybe more conflict too.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it's something I've definitely wrestled with myself.
Uh,
I think it really comes down to the intention behind your intellectual independence.
yeah.
If you're using it as like a weapon to prove you're right or shut down others,
Oh, yeah.
then yeah, it's going to create some friction
Of course.
in your relationships.
So it's not about wielding your intellect like a hammer and
Right.
trying to pound your ideas into everyone else.
Exactly. That's the opposite of what we're aiming for. True intellectual independence is about seeking understanding,
Okay.
both of yourself and of others. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique perspective, shaped by their experiences and their values.
So how does that translate into healthier relationships? Give us some concrete examples.
Okay, so let's say you're in a disagreement with a loved one. Instead of digging in your heels and trying to, win the argument,
Mm-hmm.
intellectual independence allows you to approach the situation with more curiosity.
Okay.
You can ask questions like, help me understand why you feel this way, or what experiences have led you to this conclusion.
So it's about shifting from a me versus you mentality to a we're in this together approach.
Precisely. You're no longer trying to dominate or control the conversation,
Right?
but to genuinely understand the other person's point of view. And that shift can be incredibly powerful.
I can see how that would create a more open and respectful dynamic, even when there are disagreements. But honestly, wouldn't it just be easier to just avoid those tough conversations altogether?
Oh, I hear you.
Who wants to argue about politics or religion at the dinner table, right?
Right. It's definitely tempting to avoid conflict,
Mm-hmm.
especially with people we care about.
Yeah,
But intellectual independence doesn't mean you have to debate every single issue.
right.
It's about being honest with yourself,
Okay.
about what you believe,
Right.
and being willing to express those beliefs respectfully, even when you know that others might disagree.
So it's about authenticity,
Yeah,
being true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable.
exactly. And when you show up in your relationships with that level of authenticity,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
You're no longer trying to be someone you're not, and that allows for deeper and more genuine connections.
But what if those authentic beliefs clash with the beliefs of someone you love? How do you navigate those situations?
It's not always easy, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. But intellectual independence gives you the tools to approach these situations with more grace and understanding. It allows you to recognize that it's okay to disagree and that having different perspectives doesn't have to be a threat to the relationship.
So it's about focusing on the shared values and the love that binds you together,
Yeah.
even when you have those differences of opinion.
That's beautifully put. And remember, intellectual independence is not just about expressing your own beliefs.
Okay.
It's also about being open to learning from others.
So even in those heated discussions,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity for growth and understanding.
Absolutely. When you approach those conversations with the genuine desire to learn, you might be surprised by what you discover. You might even find that your own perspectives evolve as
I-
you engage with different viewpoints.
This is all making me rethink how I approach my own relationships, you know? It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending to agree with everyone. It's about showing up authentically, listening with an open mind, and being willing to learn and grow, even when it's
I
challenging.
couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah,
And when both parties in a relationship embrace that mindset,
right.
it creates a dynamic that is both supportive and stimulating.
Yeah.
You can challenge each other, learn from each other, and grow together, both intellectually and emotionally.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, really. It's made me realize that intellectual independence is not just about being smart or well-informed. It's about becoming a better human being.
I agree.
More authentic, more compassionate, more capable of navigating the complexities of life and relationships.
And it all starts with that commitment to taking ownership of your own thinking and being willing to embark on that lifelong journey of learning and growth.
Well, dear listeners, we've reached the end of our deep dive into intellectual independence. We've explored the philosophy of Ayn Rand, uncovered practical strategies for cultivating this essential skill, and even considered its impact on our relationships.
It's been an honor to share these ideas with you and to witness your engagement with this powerful concept.
Remember, intellectual independence is not a destination, it's a journey. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never stop questioning, exploring, and growing. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those hearts open to